I had some seeds planted with me with some coaches and mentors. Like, man, if you want to be interesting, be interested in other people. And they will all of a sudden just be so interested in you.
Such a big tip. Yeah.
Yep.
And I didn't get it at first, but then I started practicing it.
Yeah.
And I start asking people's names. Like I asked the lady's name at the desk today.
Yep.
And her face lights up, man. And she's probably, I don't know, she may not have ever had anybody ask her name before.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, definitely. Kelsey said it to me today. We were talking about pressure, and she goes, well, pressure, most people don't realize pressure is a privilege. And it is. And if you tell yourself pressure is a privilege, you're going to respond totally different than, hey, let's try to avoid pressure. And I think most people avoid pressure. They do anything they can to release that, you know, how can I avoid this pressure on my life? And whether it's substances or, you know, a lot of people are using social media. They're addicted to their phones and they're just escaping reality by entering somebody else's. They might be addicted to whatever. Maybe they're addicted to fitness. It's not empowering their life, and they're spending 4, 5, 6 hours a day in the gym, but they're broke, right? And so there's these suppressive behaviors people use, and I think most of the time, and I know I've done it, I'm sure, Brandon, you've done it at some points, where we have these behaviors that are really consequences of trying to avoid the pressure because we're scared of failing, or we're scared of what if it doesn't work, or what if I go for it and I fail. All these, you know, feelings that maybe on the outside people go, oh man, he's unstoppable. He'll hit a jump on a motorcycle doing however, whatever, you know, he's like, dude's crazy. But on the inside, really, you're going, man, I'm scared of death. Right.
Yep.
And I think that if people remember that if you can find something that drives you more than the discomfort of where you're at, right? And so that might be a dream, or it might be providing for your family, or it might be making your spouse proud, or delivering for her, like you talk about in the book. She put up with you for so many years, time to make her proud, or you know, marrying and then having a son who was a few years old and having to step up for him, right? Who just turned 18 and he's such a good kid. I think that's important for people to understand. You know, these next, I felt like we just covered these next couple chapters. Find your fuel, and then believe you're meant for greatness, which I think we just covered those. So then it goes into the next part and talking about accelerate, get focused, get disciplined, and find your mission. And I think there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast, that are on social media, and they know they want to change their lives. They know they're stuck. They know they've got to do these things, and maybe they've started to, but yet they're still just kind of mediocre, right? I think, Brandon, we had a lot of these people in our business, right? They would come in and they would just kind of exist.
Yeah.
And they never really made a decision to get totally focused, get disciplined. And I think you do those things by finding your mission and finding something you're passionate about.
And I think that's the big separator. Because I've known a lot of people like that too. They start making those decisions to move out of those old habits and what's getting them the results that they're not interested in anymore. But then the lack of clarity on their mission and their goals and the vision for their future gets them just a little bit farther than they used to be. So one of the cool opportunities of leadership is to really help people see a vision for their future and to be able to have something that inspires them.
Oh.
So that's, you know, I didn't really have any leaders that helped me with that. I just started tapping into these environments where people were talking about it.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, from Grant Cardone and from some of these other people in this mentor group and other events that I went to.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, like this is maybe something that I'm missing because I kind of feel burnt out.
Come on, dude. Your mission or passion is Windows, isn't it?
My mission is not Windows.
See,
it's not door to door.
Yeah, it's like this. I wanted to say that because I think people listen to this like, well, I just haven't found my purpose or passion yet. And they're thinking that it has to do with this thing they're going to sell, or like for us was financial services or whatever. And it's like that they're missing the entire thing. Your purpose doesn't mean that's the tool you use to achieve your purpose. It's just finding the thing that drives you, that lights your soul on fire. And I know, like, for me, as developing people, I love seeing people accomplish their goals and dreams, and that's because I had someone like Brandon who helped me do that, where I didn't know anything, and he said, hey, let me teach you what I know. And then I went and changed my life, and it made my family better, my marriage better, me as a better father, a better friend, all these things in my life. And that became my purpose.
Well, I think it's having the ability to take somebody who, I've always said, if somebody won't even attempt to do something they don't believe they can do, right?
Right.
So if the belief isn't there, like Jeff comes into my business, and I don't think he believed he could do Primerica at first. I don't think he believed
in the beginning.
You're right. Yeah. Yep. And I think there was one of the turning points for you was we went to this big event, and just before the big event, you go, hey, my aunt lives in Boise. Maybe I'll move up there. You just kind of said it passively, right? Mm-hmm. And I was speaking at that event, so I got up and spoke at that event and was talking about our expansion as a hierarchy and where we were going to go. And Jeff and Kelsey are going to move up to Boise. And he didn't say he was moving to Boise. He just said I might. and I don't know. You can correct me, but I would imagine me saying that probably went, oh man, I really believed you could do it, right? Yeah. And it seems like when you're talking about accelerating here, there's so many people that come into our businesses that we're talking about, catching a vision and all that stuff. But our job as leaders is to pour belief into them until they believe they can do it themselves. And obviously they've got to take the baton. You're going to hand them a baton. They got to take it. If they're not willing to take it, they'll never get it. But we have got to help people believe just at least the next step. I would imagine you got to a point where you believed you could do all this stuff. In the beginning, you probably were, I don't know. And then you started to go, I can do this, right?
You get a little momentum, a little more belief, more confidence. And another aspect of accelerating is plugging into environments like that. Because you can do it on your own. It's going to take you longer, though.
Yeah.
If you can plug into an environment and great leadership and people that believe in you, that can just pump you full of energy about what you're capable of doing, most people aren't willing to just muster that up.
No.
Yep.
All of a sudden, I just believe in myself like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
But if you can plug into those environments, that's really being able to accelerate the process. Just the energy, the belief, the everything that you guys built and thrived on and saw so many people be able to plug into and become successful.
Yeah. Yeah. There used to be this saying in our business, compete, don't compare. And I almost think comparison is an important thing. It's one of the things that helps you believe because, early on.
I think comparing is competing, kind of. I think
we've talked about that
same,
before.
Right? Yeah.
And whether someone thinks it's different, but, people say, don't compare yourself to others, And I don't know. I think that if you have desire to achieve something great, you almost look for ways to compare yourself to somebody to motivate you, right?
There's a healthy way to do it.
Sure. Yeah, I went to this trip early on in our career. We won this trip in San Diego. I'll never forget. I was sitting at this table and this guy was making $300,000 a year. We were just getting started, dude. Yeah. And he was cross-eyed and had 4 teeth. And I remember telling Kelsey on the way back, I'm like, babe, we had this book. You could open up the book. You could find people, So I went and found that dude in the book. And I'm like, if this dude can do it, I know if he can make 300, I know I can make $1 million, right? I know it. And that's comparison. And it gave me belief. It really did. And that guy who I have no idea who he is, I've never met him since that day.
Never saw him again?
But no, never. But dude, he inspired me. I just totally believed that, man, if he did it, I could do it. So I think sometimes finding this belief you're talking about, Brandon, it says right here, it says, what could happen if you started to believe different things are possible for you? What if you believe you're capable of living a better life? And so I think sometimes the way you are able to do those things is to compare yourself to somebody you believe you have similar skill sets to, if they did it, I could do that.
And you've got to get yourself out in the world to find those people to compete and compare yourself with, right?
Exactly.
You found Grant Cardone. You go, hey, Grant Cardone overcame addiction. He did this. So he was one guy. And then you went to these group meetings and you meet all these other people. You go, maybe that guy or that gal can do it.
What do they have that I don't?
Yeah.
Nothing.
A lot of people, I think they're stuck at their regular same job. They see the same people. They stay at their same house. They don't get out and meet people or put themselves in a position like you did, where you reached out, you paid $1,100, you got yourself into this group and get yourself into a new environment, like you're saying, right? And that's because more is caught than taught. When it comes to success,
comfort is the enemy of greatness.
You got to put yourself in that environment,
right?
Which is uncomfortable, right?
One of the cool things that we've talked about, and And there's so many of these examples and commonalities between people that are successful. Mm-hmm. And then the way that you talked about that guy with 3 teeth and cross-eyed that was making $300,000, that's the way that I looked at Trevor and Brian when they started their window businesses.
Yeah.
And they were making money, and they were out doing happy hour and playing golf every day, and they were living a lifestyle that, at that point I kind of wanted to emulate, and I envied that. Yeah. Because all I was doing was working my ass off.
Yeah.
And I was working 70 hours a week, and I was greasy, and I was miserable. And I was like, if these freaking guys can do it, like they're not anything special. I love both of them.
Yeah.
And they're talented, and they had developed themselves. But what the hell do they have that I don't have?
Yeah.
And I remember having these conversations with myself. And it drove me, and it took me a long time to finally make the decision. But what's interesting is that there's all of these clues, and there's all of these commonalities, and they're right there for everybody. Like there's thousands of books like mine.
Yep.
With all of these things that are so simple for you to plug into and to emulate and to just follow the clues. And if you don't have thoughts like that, well, why don't I have thoughts like that?
Yeah.
If I was watching this
Important question to
podcast
ask ourselves,
and I'm not having thoughts like that, well, how do I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get uncomfortable. Yeah, I mean, that's the reality. That's how you start changing your thoughts, is you start changing what makes you comfortable. Because if you're not having thoughts that are challenging your lifestyle, who you are as an individual, then you're comfortable, period. Because when you're uncomfortable, you go, maybe I should have more. Maybe I should do more. Maybe I should work harder, right? Maybe I should have more freedom. Maybe I should be able to golf during the week, I say it all the time. Like, who are these dudes that are golfing on a Tuesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon? Like, who are these guys?
It gives me anxiety just to think about it.
Yeah, right? Yeah, like, and someone's doing it, It's like, I saw a guy post today. He was going through Fort Lauderdale, and he was on a fishing. He just went on a fishing trip, and they were coming back, and he goes down this row of 30, 40, $50 million yachts on both sides, one after another, for like miles. 30, 40, $50 million yachts for as long as he could film the video. And you sit there and think about, look at all of these people. I used to tell people all the time, if you get on cars.com and you just go sports cars and you go price high to low, there are cars selling every single day for $5, $6, $7, $8 million. Watches. People dropping $1 million, $2 million on a watch. And then people go, well, nice for them. I can't pay my bills. Well, I think that is the key, is saying, okay, what do I have to do to change my comfort level? It doesn't mean you have to want those things, but isn't there a time in your life where you say, okay, enough is enough. I'm sick and tired that everybody else is out there living this life. Why not me? Like, I'm good enough. I can do it. And I think a lot of times it's getting around people who are successful and humanizing them and realizing they put on their pants the same way I do. It's by humanizing someone. I hope people realize this is important. By you humanizing people that you had met that were successful, like Grant Cardone, isn't degrading to his character. It says a lot about him that he did hard things, right? He was willing to be uncomfortable, and he was willing to be disciplined. He was willing to learn new skills. He was willing to do all these things. It doesn't make him less of a person.
It also doesn't make him a freaking superhero either.
Exactly.
He's nothing special.
Yeah.
Like, I am nothing special.
Right.
Yeah. I was raised I was born first, and I was raised with 4 other boys, and I've got a regular blue collar background, and I was named after my dad. So there's all these things that I tell myself, all this like reinforcing. There's like, I am the baddest MFer,
Yeah.
Right.
But really, I'm nothing special.
Yeah.
You come from a similar background.
Yeah.
Grant Cardone grew up in freaking some backwoods place in Louisiana, and he's got the accent to prove it.
Yeah.
And that was just something that drove me. I was comparing myself in a healthy way to these other people. Like, what do these guys have that I don't have? Why can't I have what they have?
Yeah, and you can. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought belief up, Brandon, because I do think that it is crucial as people to believe, and I think that's how people find belief. A lot of times it's just finding somebody who's succeeded that they realize, like, oh, they're no better than me.
Well, and you got to continue to build upon that belief, and you get yourself, you have a goal. You have somewhere you want to go. Like, I heard something said the other day, it was better than, instead of having a goal, have a I can't remember what it was.
Mission.
Come to me. There's something else. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, but you get yourself on a path, and you stay consistent on that path. Your belief, you're going to continue to build upon that belief. When I started in my financial services business, I was 22 years old. thought, I'll listen to these audio tapes and start figuring out how to talk to people a little bit, and I'll set some appointments, and I'd set an appointment and go, okay, if I can set one, I can set another one. Then I go do an appointment and give a presentation, and then I would like be assumptive and actually close a sale. Okay, I can close a sale now, right? And then I'd recruit somebody, and then I'd get a promotion, and your belief continues to build upon as long as you continue on that path, right? But you can't stop. You just got to, if you stay consistent long enough. I remember getting up after a few months in the business as a 22-year-old doing training in Brendan Merton's office and beating everybody in the office as a 22-year-old kid. And everyone's going, "What are you doing?" I'm going, I'm just prospecting every day and setting appointments every day.
What they told me to do.
I'm not doing anything special.
Yeah.
I'm opening my mouth. I'm doing the uncomfortable things. The things I'm doing don't take talent. Now, look, there's some people skills involved. There's some learning how to ask the right questions and closing questions that I learned. But everybody knows how to talk, so just learn how to use the right words, right?
Everybody has access to those same tapes.
They have the same tapes, right?
Absolutely.
And the same amount of hours in the day to put the effort into it.
Well, and it's that too is like a lot of times people, you get crowd people, what are you doing? I'm doing what they told me to do. And they're looking for this secret thing, like this light bulb moment. And that light bulb moment isn't happening. You said something that looking back, I can see a pivotal moment, but I didn't think it was happening there. And I think all of us can agree that almost every pivotal moment in our lives and in our career, we didn't see it at that moment that this is the moment my life is going to change. This is the thing.
Can you imagine?
This is the crossroads.
That'd be awesome if we could.
We couldn't though, right? But we made the decision. Now we look back and go, man, I made that decision that day, but it didn't seem like it at that moment.
And how and I think another thing, how do you choose to see yourself, right? You can continue to see yourself as the old version of you, or you can go, I'm going to start seeing myself as this version that I want to become. Yeah. And I'm going to see myself as that and act as if.
Yeah.
And you act as if that's going to become your new reality.
Absolutely.
Yep. And I remember, you find a mentor, Grant Cardone. Mine was Hector Lamarck or Art Williams, And I would see myself as Hector Lamarck, and I was going to recruit a Rick Susie, and I was going to recruit a Gary McCrummon. And so, I was going to build the same hierarchy as him. So because I saw myself as that, guess what I created?
That's exactly what you built.
Because I chose to see myself. Yep. Whereas most people would join my business, and they'd continue to see themselves as just who they were.
Yeah.
I'd be like, no, man, you're the Rick Susie in my hierarchy.
Yeah.
I tried to.
You're not going to outperform your belief level.
Right.
It's just never going to happen. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So if you want to perform higher, you got to increase your belief. So let's talk about the last chapter, man, which is go further, faster. It's find your people, do work you're proud of, which I think is incredible. Invest in yourself, and then communicate the hard way. So let's talk about these things, man.
Some good stuff here.
It is. It is. I had such a good time. It took me 2.5 years to write this flipping book.
Did it really? And
I went through 3 different companies, 5 different ghostwriters, and it was an undertaking. If anybody wants to write a book, it's so worth it, but it's a big commitment.
Yeah.
And when you talk about going further, faster, so now you've got some of your belief systems fixed up, and you got some new daily habits and some disciplines that are going to help you really accelerate. You're surrounding yourself with great people. Maybe you got yourself a mentor and a coach. Now you want to go further, faster. There's some stuff in here about leadership, about communication, about dealing with people on a high level. I think one of the big things is finding something. So you'd mentioned something earlier about, there's this huge misconception, like I'm going to find some task that I can do that really just fills my soul and is a passion to me, like being a baker or these weird things that people just have this misconception that they're going to find this magical thing that just turns them on.
Yeah, randomly God's going to show up and go, here you go.
Boom.
Yeah.
You've always had this in you.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work like that. When I got involved in door-to-door sales, it was an opportunity for me to make more money. I effing hated it. I was miserable because I was only focused on the money. And in the first couple of months, I did terrible. Like my results showed for it. But the longer that I was around there, the more that I tried to figure out, like, am I going to stay? Am I going to go? What am I going to be passionate about? And then I got good enough that Brian had me start training people. Mm-hmm. And then I blew a couple people out of the water, and I made people feel like shit, and I didn't have patience for people. And I started to like really reflect on my style and the way that I'd been raised and how all of this was kind of transpiring in the way that I was training people.
Yeah.
And then I remember the first, like this, I had this one guy, he's still in the business. He works for Brian still. He's an incredible dude. And I had this moment at his house where I was mentoring him and I was coaching him and I was, like pouring this belief that he was going to be capable of doing so much here. And he had all these natural talents. And it was like all of this was just flowing out of me. For the first time, I was just like tapped into something that I didn't know was there. And I didn't know that was going to be the thing. Mm-hmm. And now I look back and I didn't really come to realize that for a long time after that. Mm. But I look back and I remember, there's so much that's happened between now and then.
Yeah.
But I remember those freaking little moments because it was like this, I had tapped into something that I felt great about.
Do you think it was that you saw him as a brother and as someone you really wanted to win and succeed? What do you think it was? What was it that got you in that flow? Can you pinpoint it? Can you?
Well, I did. I care about people.
Yeah.
And me and him had developed a relationship. So I cared about him. I wanted him to win.
Yeah.
And I was trying to give him everything that I had. And one of the biggest things that he was struggling with was his own personal belief that he could do it and that he was capable of being a closer and being able to sit down at the kitchen table and have the influence with people. But for whatever reason, it was just like in that moment, talking to that kid at his house, and I didn't have a whole lot going on for me.
You hit that sweet spot.
But I hit this sweet spot. And it was just like, wow, that felt good.
I know the feeling, man.
Yeah, I think that's when you're in a selfless pursuit of helping other people, because so often we're thinking about ourselves, right? And I think that's, what you said earlier about being a leader and believing in other people. Like a lot of times when we get out of our own way, we stop thinking about how we feel and we start thinking about how can we pour into other people's lives. That's when you find great things happening. It's also what I think makes leaders better, because then they believe in someone else. It's almost like, like you did to me with saying we're moving to Idaho. It was like, that was it, dude. It really was. We were like, okay, I guess we're moving to Idaho. Like, we don't have a choice now. Brandon said it in front of 1,000 people. Like
the seed was planted.
Yeah, what are we gonna do? Like, if we don't go, everybody's gonna go, what, did Jeff and Kelsey punk out? Like, guess we're going. And so I think a lot of times it takes a leader willing to believe in someone else, because it also, at some point, there was some risk for you involved too, where it wasn't like we weren't doing anything. Where if we moved and crashed and burned,
Yep.
But if you're going to believe in somebody, a lot of times that's what it does. It takes the feeling or the scarcity mindset or the uncomfortable feelings off yourself. And when you're believing in someone else, it lights your soul on fire. It's like, man, you could do this. And then you start believing it yourself. Like, man, if he could do it and I'm telling him, maybe I ought to listen to the same thing I'm saying. And I think a lot of times that's what happens when people start building businesses. This is also why if you keep doing it, the longer you're doing it, the better the people get further on throughout your career. It's because you're like,
and you want to go further faster. You don't want to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
You've got to develop the ability to train and mentor and coach and communicate at a high level and inspire people.
And you have to let them lead.
Yeah.
You have to let them go, and they're not going to do it like you, and it's okay, right?
Yeah. And if you think about all the best lessons came from the biggest mistakes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you're just trying to give everybody every step of the way and not let them make any mistakes, they're not going to have those same opportunities.
The big ones hurt the most. Those are the ones you don't forget. Like, I better change so that don't happen again. Yeah, it's like that saying that if you want to go, if you want to go far, or if you want to go fast, go by yourself. But if we ain't go far, go together. And I think it's powerful, man. A team always wins. So, another things you talked about in here was, talking about networking, like initiating conversations, be interested in other people, learning people's names. These are things you do really well, right? But I think, like in high school and stuff, you did a really good job of that with the group of people that you were friends with. But I don't know how good of a job you did that with people that you weren't really good friends with. But It seems to me you took that skill that you already had and got uncomfortable. And now, I watch you everywhere we go. You're building new relationships. You know where people are from. You know their names. And you're constantly doing that everywhere we go, So it's not something you're just saying, hey, here's what you should do. But it's also something you're constantly doing. So how did you go from being the person where you were comfortable framing a house or being a mechanic, kind of wanting to be by yourself. You're always really good with people. Like anybody listening to this, you always had great charisma and good people skills. And I think that was probably part of the thing that got you through these crazy times in your life was your charisma, right? Mm-hmm. But also you've taken that now and got uncomfortable and used that to build a great business by networking and building relationships and all those kind of things. So talk about maybe the process of how you went from that being this talent or skill that was just kind of hidden, and then you were able to actually get uncomfortable and go use it.
Yeah, it's something that I had a little bit naturally, but it had to be developed because I always cared about people. And then you go through these motions of seeing how people perceive you when it's just all about you and you're the one talking and it's, you're not all that interested in them. And then I had some seeds planted with me with some coaches and mentors. Like, man, if you want to be interesting, be interested in other people. And they will all of a sudden just be so interested in you.
Such a big tip. Yeah.
Yep.
And I didn't get it at first, but then I started practicing it.
Yeah.
And I start asking people's names. Like I asked the lady's name at the desk today.
Yep.
And her face lights up, man. And she's probably, I don't know, she may not have ever had anybody ask her name before.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, definitely.
That
amazing. Most people don't. They just walk in and out. And
what a simple
lady at the front desk. Yeah.
And she's just like, her face lights up and she kind of stands up halfway and she's like, I'm Kelly.
Yep.
And once I started being able to just see that and see how people lit up and just a smile or asking their name or asking where they're from or asking about their kids, you can go start a conversation anywhere.
Yeah.
And I've built some incredible relationships just by just genuinely being interested about people.
Yeah.
I just I text messaged Bradley today and I said, hey brother, my book's coming out in a couple weeks. Can I come back on the podcast? And he says, sure. And my assistant's been trying to get a hold of him for 3 weeks. He hasn't answered any messages.
Yeah.
And then I said, thanks, bro. And he said, what are friends for?
That's awesome.
But I built that relationship with Brad by not showing up and being the guy that's like talking about everything I got going on.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking about him and his wife and the things that he's got going on. And we built this little relationship where I would razz him about stuff within like the first couple hours that I met him. And it all came from being very intentional about caring about people and being genuine. And you can tell when somebody's genuine and when they're not freaking genuine.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And you want to go accomplish big things. It's not about how much you can do by yourself or how good of a salesperson you can become. Mm-hmm. It's about the relationships, the network, the opportunities that come from all of those things. And to think about all of the incredible things that have happened to me, all the investments that I'm in now and all the money that I've made and the business opportunities, they've all came from like these little skills that I just practiced, and they seem like nothing now.
Yeah.
But for some people that are like, man, you're so confident. It's like just being myself, just being interested in people.
Things begin to flow to you because you've been pouring into others.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like once you learn a new skill. So somebody say, well, that's not me. Well, then make it you.
Yeah.
Like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, if this is if you really want to live a better life, then make it you, And I think that's an important thing. And I don't know how much, what else you want to cover.
There's one other thing. Well, go ahead if you have something. There's one thing I want to ask for sure. But
this is just the last thing I had today that I wanted to bring up because I just wanted to bring up a few of things that I think are important that I think exemplify who you are, and why people need to go read the book because you do such a good job of explaining this book. Really, dude. I'm not just saying it because I text you personally, right? You did such a good job.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it.
And you said when you're fully committed to excellence and integrity, you stand out next to other people who are just going through the motions in their careers. And I think very rarely does somebody actually commit to excellence, like really commit to doing something big with integrity, right? And in my mind, that's, hey, I'm going to be the best I can be, not just when people are around, but also with my family, also with my friends, also with every area of my life. And you've definitely done that, right? And so maybe talk a little bit about how you decided to do that, because that wasn't always the case, right? But I don't think it was always intentional either. Like, you not seeking excellence wasn't intentional. In fact, you were probably an excellent partier.
I was, bro. Everybody knew that.
World class.
That I was either going to be calling you. I either knew where the party already was, or I was going to be calling you to find out where the party was.
Yeah, I mean, I've told a lot of people, I think what you really did well is redirected your energy. I don't really think there was necessarily a lot of, I know there was change from the outside, but it was always internal. Like, you always had it, right? But it was just redirected. And I think that's most people too. Like, a lot of people are very skilled and have these great personalities and they can achieve great things, but they just don't know how to direct it into the right place. But you did, and you figured it out because of all these things we talked about today. But maybe talk about how, like, what is that, first of all, to you? What is seeking excellence? And then what made you decide to do that? And then what are the results from those things?
Well, I don't think anybody feels good about saying something and then not doing it.
Right.
And I had, I wasn't all that reliable early just because I didn't have a lot of resources. I didn't have a license a lot of my teens and 20s. And I would sometimes make commitments that I couldn't keep. And then when I really started figuring out what my core values were, was when I noticed that other people did it. Then it really freaking lit me up.
Yeah.
It's like, if you tell me you're going to do something, you don't do it. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
So I've implemented that in every area of my life and in my business. And when I started my business, that was one of the hard commitments to make, because it was this perception that had been fed to me by other business owners and the people that I had worked with. Like, it was just such a huge commitment that I was going to have to make to be able to really have integrity and do what I said I was going to do and over deliver and take care of customers from a warranty and service standpoint, like most people aren't willing to do.
Right.
And, now being a consumer myself and a homeowner and watching how other people do it, it's very prevalent. Like, people want to collect their money from you and then they want to move on.
And isn't it crazy how different you feel when you meet a pro versus when you meet an amateur? And I think the difference in those things is how they respond when a challenge shows up, right? Or long-term service. Like, do you really care? And yeah, I mean, I think what you just said there is pretty powerful. Like, Kelsey's she'd been shopping for a new car, and nobody calls anybody back. Or you look at real estate agents;
it's amazing.
They don't follow up with anybody. And a lot of times, we were talking about earlier today, you're like, man, I have to follow up. I have to be the one keeping a fire underneath their butt. But if they were really like made a decision to commit to excellence, then they automatically do that. And I think when you talk about them standing out, it's a big thing. I don't think it's not that hard to stand out.
No, it's not especially these days.
No.
So that's one of the things I'm the most proud of in my business.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of work to do with the culture and to really dial in and max out on the possibilities of creating a sales team that's attracting incredible people. But one of the things that I really dialed in on early was some of those aspects of the customer service and the warranty and the lengths that we were willing to go for our customers to make sure that they were happy. And we drive across the state to go change a freaking screen if we had to.
Yeah.
And we don't just say it, we do it.
Yeah.
And the last thing I would ever want to happen is for one of my newest salespeople or my oldest salespeople to see that we were just talking a big game, but we weren't willing to deliver on it.
Right.
Then there creates doubt in the rest of the organization.
Then they cut corners too.
Yeah.
And then everybody's cutting corners, and that core value that we got up on the wall, committed to excellence, is just a bullshit story.
Yep. I wanted to ask you one more question.
I was just going to say, but I also watch you do this with your family too, which I think is just as powerful in business. It's like, one of the things I notice all the time, you'll go riding with Hayden and come back, and you've taught him these things like, hey, dude, wash off your bike, put it back. But then you're also out there helping him a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
Or with the kids, whatever. It's always those things, and I think they always feel like, hey, I can count on Dad. And I think it's pretty powerful. So your business feels like that. Hey, we can count on them. But that has also bled into other areas of your life. Do you feel like it started in one and went into the other, or do you feel like, or you just feel like, hey, I made a decision, this is who I am now?
No, I think it did. It started in the business, and I started to see that for those first 18 months in business where I was pretty much non-existent for my daughters and my son and my wife, that I was making promises and I wasn't keeping them.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to be home at a certain time and I wasn't home. And we were supposed to be doing date night and dinner with the family, and I was making excuses.
Yeah.
And there came a time where I saw it wearing on the relationships, and there was tension built, and there was like this letdown, and my family, stops being as excited to see me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I have complete control over this. I created this.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want my family to perceive me like that again. I want them to know that if I make them a commitment, if we're going on a daddy-daughter date, you better damn sure believe I'm going to be there on time. We're going to have the best time ever.
Yep.
And I'm not going to be late in anything for my wife, for my son, for my daughters.
I love what you said, man. I have complete control over this. And everyone does, whether it's in business or whether it's with their family.
Yeah.
It's awesome, dude.
We do. We're in control.
Yep.
Okay, time has flown by. We're like way over time here, but that's okay because this is good stuff. So last thing, and before this, if any of you ever are around Jefferson when he's driving his truck, I just want to bring this up. He's got this ridiculously obnoxious, is it an air horn? That's loud. It's loud times 100.
Yeah, I've had to change my pants a few times.
It's freaking insanely loud.
It's make you deaf if you're standing next
and
to
I think
it.
you have 2 trucks and you have it in both trucks. I don't know why you have it, but whatever. So he likes to use that once in a while so you can hear Jefferson all around St. George whenever he honks. I'll be driving down the road.
So is that communicating the hard
anyway,
way?
no. So Mike, but actually that was actually what I was going to ask you. So I've watched you and I've been with you before. Where have you've been communicating with some of your sales force? And I would say they were hard conversations, but you did a very good job with them. I think it was really good. You were establishing your culture with them. You were establishing how to handle situations with them, leadership, teaching them leadership. I've just been with you and you've done that. I've been very impressed. But you talk about communicating the hard way is chapter 10.
Yeah.
Just real quick, what does that mean? We got to be able to communicate the hard way. What do you mean by that?
Communication it's everything. Everything in life is sales and communication. And for me, early on, I didn't have many communication skills. My dad's style it taught me how to do things leading into sales, and it didn't lead to very many good things early on, especially as I started training and developing people, because I didn't have patience and I didn't know how to communicate. And all I did was just expect, and I didn't know how to really give direction or inspire.
Well, in all fairness, your dad was fighting fires, so he wasn't trying to inspire fires.
Yeah. And he did his absolute best. And he grew up essentially in the fire department.
He's tough as nails, yeah.
And the guy's tough as nails, and he's one of the world-renowned Las Vegas firefighters. And everybody in that city knew him as being one of the baddest MFers in that city. And that's who I learned from. But it doesn't necessarily translate into other areas of life and leadership the way that I wanted it to. And I had no idea. I just started seeing the repercussions of that type of leadership style and communication style and how many people I blew out of the water.
Yeah.
So over time, I developed the patience, and I wanted to make people feel good, and I wanted to inspire people. And if I made somebody feel like shit, I never wanted to do that to anybody again. It felt terrible.
Yeah.
And then as you get into leadership and, whether it's in sales or in your family, there's these opportunities for you to handle things, take the emotion out of it, and handle things professionally and tactfully to get a positive solution.
Yep.
And a positive outcome. So when I say communicate the hard way, most people will avoid those difficult conversations.
Yeah.
And avoiding it only makes it worse.
Right.
So whether it's with a business partner or an employee that needs to hear something, you've got to do it in a way that you're going to get a great solution out of it and a great outcome. And if it's with your spouse, you guys are in this together. Like I'm 100% committed with my spouse, and I wasn't always good at communicating my expectations.
Yeah.
And the things that I was doing in my business was wearing on our relationship, and I didn't know how to communicate it.
Yeah.
I was just like, you got to get behind me.
Yeah.
Like I'm working my ass off for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not the best way to do it.
Well,
Turns out.
relationship should always come before communication, right? If you have the relationship, you can have the tough communication, right?
Yeah.
And you've done a good job of that with your people. And like you're saying with our spouses, right? We have those moments where maybe sometimes we're communicating in a way that's not, we need to build that relationship first, and then we can have those tough conversations. People know where we're coming from if we have the relationship. Even if we come across a little bit harsh, they know, I know Jefferson. I know what he means,
Yeah, if you can give him a hug, you can probably tell him something and they're going to take it a little bit.
That was how I took it from my dad. It's like, I know he's well-meaning. I know he loves me. And even after he'd kicked my ass and put me through a wall, I always loved him.
Yeah.
But there's in leadership and in business and in leading a family, there's different ways, more tactful ways of doing it. And sometimes you got to have difficult conversations. Mm-hmm. And I've had a lot of them. So I've had a lot of practice, a lot of repetitions, and I haven't always done it the right way. But I'm more prepared now to go have a difficult conversation than I ever have. And so I try and share in the book that you're still going to have to make these mistakes.
Yep.
Like there's no getting around all the hard shit that comes with becoming successful. But here are some tips for you to right now have some new awareness that next time, even if you have all these tools, you're still going to F it up.
Yep.
But at least you had some practice preparing and thinking about the outcome first and being able to go in there prepared and taking the emotion out of it. And whether it's with an employee or a partner or a spouse, that all applies.
Yeah, I think the struggle never disappears. It's those forks in the road we talked about earlier that, when you're self-improving, you're reading books, you're learning from a mentor, you're still going to have the struggle. You're still going to have the bumps in the road. They're just hopefully going to help you make the right turn. But you're still going to have to go through those hard challenges to be able to do it right. Because you don't get experience unless you just do it.
Yeah. That's what the book is meant for. There's no magic pill. This book is not meant to be a magic pill. It's an example of what I did to get unstuck, start accelerating in my life, and start to go further, faster. And I've accomplished a lot in the last 6 years with the help of a lot of people, with the support of my wife and my family. But I made a ton of mistakes along the way.
Yeah.
So how do people get it? How do they find you? What we got to get this out to people.
Oh yeah.
So the book comes out officially October 31st on Halloween 2023. And we're doing, on that date, if this comes out before then, you can get it for 99 cents on the Kindle version. But then it goes up to full price. And you'll be able to find a link on my Instagram, so at Jefferson K. Rogers.
Yeah, and we'll make sure we put it
in our description too.
And then also, I think we'll put a link to where they can go to the Amazon store and buy it.
And you've got Les Brown, Sam Taggart, and Dave Blanchard, who all wrote their, and Kevin Harrington as well, who all wrote their little testimonies of the book on the back there. So that's a pretty big deal.
It is, dude. You got some awesome guys on there. That's super cool.
Yep, I've been blessed to build some relationships and to plug in with some pretty heavy hitters in the sales industry and personal development, and had a lot of inspiration to put this book together.
Well, great job you're doing, man. We love knowing you. Love being your friend.
Appreciate you guys.
Proud of you, man.
Excited to work on some big things together. Yeah, for sure.
What a great podcast today, dude. Thank you for coming on again. And for those of you guys listening, make sure you get online, get Jefferson's book, Jefferson K. Rogers, all in, get unstuck, accelerate, and go further, faster. Thanks again, dude.
Thanks, you guys.